Some prisons don't just lock away criminals, they imprison their souls. Eastern State Penitentiary's Cell 13 is said to hold the most restless of those souls, and even now, a voice still whispers from behind its stone walls. Opened in 1829, Eastern State Penitentiary was introduced to the world as a modern prison system. But in practice, it was more a place of torment than reform. Prisoners were locked alone in tiny cells, kept in darkness for weeks, forbidden to speak to anyone. Guards even placed iron masks over their faces so they wouldn't see each other. But among all this suffering, one cell became a place even guards feared to approach, Cell 13. In the 1830s, a convicted murderer named Henry Darrow was placed in this cell. For the first few days, he was quiet, but soon his nights filled with screams. "Stop talking! Be quiet! I don't want to hear them anymore." Guards swore the corridor was empty, yet Henry insisted voices were whispering to him. Weeks later, he was found with his hair torn out, eyes staring blankly, and one morning, without a single wound on his body, he was dead. His last words chilled the guards. "They told me to stay here." Over time, Cell 13 became the most dreaded assignment in the prison. Guards quickened their steps whenever they passed its corridor at night. One guard reported hearing heavy breathing from inside, only to open the door and find it empty. Another claimed that as he placed his key in the lock, a cold hand gripped his shoulder. When he turned, no one was there. Every new recruit was given the same warning: don't linger at Cell 13. By the early 1900s, the cell was deemed unusable. Prisoners placed inside either descended into madness or suffered violent panic attacks within days. Official records note that the cell was repainted and cleaned multiple times. But no matter what was done, an overwhelming stench of burnt wood and decayed flesh lingered. Finally, the door was shut, sealed with iron. Yet the stories did not stop. When the prison became a museum in the 1960s, paranormal researchers turned their attention to Cell 13. One team left recording devices overnight. The next day, when the tapes were played, they discovered faint murmurs, words impossible to fully understand, but one word repeated over and over: "Stay." Another investigator spent 30 minutes inside the cell alone. When he emerged, his eyes were bloodshot as if he had been weeping. He said only one thing: "Someone told me to stay. And the worst part, I wanted to obey." Today, Eastern State Penitentiary is a tourist site, but tour guides still avoid entering Cell 13. One visitor reported capturing a photo of a misty shadow in the center of the room. Another said they felt icy breath on the back of their neck after only seconds inside. The most disturbing testimony came from a tourist who said, "I took a picture, and in the frame there was a face standing right behind me. I showed it to the tour guide, and he just smiled and said, 'Yes, that one usually shows up in Cell 13. Even now, those who pass by claim they hear muffled whispers through the walls. Officials dismiss it as old pipes, but those who stand there insist it is different, like voices still speaking, still alive in the cell. Perhaps Henry Darrow, perhaps the dozens who followed, or perhaps something that was never human at all. Iron doors may close and locks may rust, but some places never release the souls within. Cell 13 of Eastern State Penitentiary still keeps its prisoners, and maybe the most terrifying thought is this: anyone who enters might one day want to stay. In the heart of a decaying city, surrounded by walls of stone and barbed wire, stood Blackwood Penitentiary, a prison built in the late 1800s. Its reputation was one of brutality, despair, and stories that no official record ever confirmed. Among the crumbling halls and echoing corridors, one cell would become the center of a mystery that still chills the guards who once walked those halls. Cell 27. Daniel Harker was not a notorious killer nor a mastermind criminal. He was a petty thief sentenced to several years for repeated burglaries. He was considered an ordinary prisoner, quiet, solitary, and obedient. But in April of 1947, his name became etched into the dark folklore of Blackwood. On the night of April 12th, Daniel was locked in as usual. Guards walked their rounds, noting his presence. His cell door was secure, the heavy iron lock in place. The windows were barred, sealed with rusted bolts impossible to tamper with. Everything was as it should be, but when dawn broke, cell 27 stood empty. The guards were baffled. The lock was untouched, the bars unbroken. The floor was solid concrete, and no tunnel had been dug. There was no sign of struggle, no traces of blood or tools. It was as if Daniel Harker had simply evaporated into the night. What unsettled the staff even more was what he left behind. On his bed lay a single sheet of paper. Written in hurried, uneven handwriting were the words, "You cannot keep me here. The walls whisper, and the shadows guide me." At first, the warden dismissed it as a trick, a diversion to cover up an escape. Every corner of the prison was searched, the sewers were examined, the gates inspected, and even the rooftops scoured. But Daniel was nowhere. No one had seen him leave. No one could explain how a locked cell had lost its prisoner. Rumors began spreading rapidly among the inmates. Some swore they had heard strange voices in the night, low whispers that seemed to seep through the stone walls of cell 27. Others claimed that when the guards left, a shadow could be seen pacing the cell, even though it stood empty. The prison chaplain, Father Wilkins, reported something even stranger. 2 nights after Daniel's disappearance, he walked past cell 27 and heard what he described as a man softly crying. But when he looked inside, the cell was dark and silent. The sound stopped the moment he peered through the bars. For weeks, the prison staff remained on edge. Guards refused to patrol the West Wing alone. The warden, desperate to maintain order, sealed cell 27 permanently. No prisoner was ever placed there again. Yet that decision only fueled the legend. Years later, when Blackwood Penitentiary finally closed its doors in the 1970s, investigators revisited old files. Daniel Harker's case was marked unsolved. No official explanation was ever given. Some speculated he had bribed guards. Others believed he had died in the walls, his body hidden by corruption. But those who worked there offered a different story. They believed Daniel had never escaped in the physical sense at all. They believed something within those walls had taken him, something that whispered in the night and promised freedom in exchange for something far darker. Today, the abandoned prison still stands. Cell 27 remains sealed, its door corroded with time. Explorers who dare enter the ruins claim they hear faint sounds inside, the scrape of footsteps, the rattle of chains, and sometimes a low whisper calling their name. And though Daniel Harker's body was never found, many believe his spirit still lingers, pacing endlessly within a cell that should have kept him forever.